What's up, everyone? I know it's been a while since I've made a YouTube video. I felt like it was time to kind of give an update just about how the last year or so has gone. So I'm kind of going off the top of my head. I don't really have too much planned. I want to talk about the last year or so of training. I do want to talk about my back injury and kind of how I went through that. I made a post on Instagram, but I'll just kind of briefly touch on that. And then just talk about how training has been and kind of maybe what some plans are for the future. So I'll go ahead and just get started. So we'll start kind of in July of 2024. So I competed in the SBD Raleigh meet. I had the best meet of my life, 840 kilo total at 883. I was very, very happy with that performance. Things were going well. I had a lot of momentum. The meet before that was also really good, 9 for 9. And kind of immediately after that, things started to shift a little bit. I started to get a little more hurt. I had a lot of nagging things. My back was getting injured. Nothing too crazy at first, but it was like, everything would be okay up to like the week 3, and then the week 4 would come around, and I just wasn't able to execute. I wasn't able to put it together. And it wasn't so much, or at all, really a strength issue. It was more like my back was just hurting too much. It would lock up on me. I would have a lot of pain. I had an ankle injury, which is so weird that was affecting my squat. I've had a lot of pec issues, which I've had for a long time, but my pec and my biceps were getting messed up, and so I wasn't able to push bench sometimes, and it was a tricky time for a while, right? And I just kept training, and my coach Marcellus and we just kept adjusting things to allow me to continue to train as close to normal as possible. And then around Thanksgiving of last year, of 2024, I hurt my back pretty bad. So for anybody who may not know, I have a couple of disc herniations from like years ago, from like 6 or 7 years ago, from early on when I started powerlifting. And I took almost 2 full years off between 2017 and 2019 from competing because my back was pretty messed up, and I took a pretty aggressive approach to rehabbing it. And I got better, and for a long time I wasn't really having any issues. And as of November of last year, as of really after the meet, July, August time, I started to have a lot of recurring back injuries, and it was mostly happening on squat, which is how it happened back then also. And it got, pretty bad around Thanksgiving. I remember I was on vacation. I was visiting my parents where they live, and one day I came in to squat, and I couldn't really squat 2 reds. Like, I squatted 2 reds as one of my warm-ups, and it was like 8 or 9 out of 10 pain. Terrible pain. So I warmed up, gave myself a little bit of time. I tried the 2 reds 2 more times, and I was able to squat it, but it was just an unbearable amount of pain to where I knew I wasn't be able to do anything productive. So from that moment, I started to adjust things. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and belt squat or leg press or whatever, just to start, get work for my legs, give my back a little bit of time to heal. And the whole time, me and Marcellus are discussing and talking about what we can do. And most of the time, you get an injury, you get a pain, you get a discomfort, you can work around it. Most of the time, even if it's hurting really bad, it might hurt really bad for a day, a session, a few hours, a week. And then a lot of times you can kind of ease back into normal training without really doing a whole lot. We just kind of let your body do its thing. Things heal, and the body's really good at doing that. You get back to normal training. And that was kind of my approach. Let me just do what I can, and hopefully this takes a few days, a week or 2, and I'm back to normal. And that wasn't really the case. We had to keep adjusting, and really nothing was kind of fixing the issue. So I'll talk a little bit about my back and kind of the approach that we did for that. So something that I always recommend, it was part of my rehab process years ago, was increasing my steps. So I started walking a little bit more. I, manage the load on the things that were hurting. So I could bench fine. I could deadlift relatively okay with a manageable level of pain. So deadlift stayed for the most part normal. I did have to go a little bit lighter, but for the most part, my sets and reps were kind of normal for a while. And then squat was really the main thing. Every time I squatted, it would get significantly worse. And so we had to adjust squat a lot. And one of the first things we had to adjust was that I just couldn't have a barbell in my back almost at all. Any amount of barbell squatting was very, very painful. And so our kind of way to work around this was, okay, we're gonna keep singles on all 3 of my squat days. We're gonna do a single, and then we're gonna do belt squat as my volume work. And that was a good decision on our part. That was something that worked for us. I was able to still come in and keep a relatively high level of strength. I want to say maybe I could still squat in the 270 to 280 range for a single, which is like around opener to second attempt ish. It was very difficult and it was very painful, but I could still kind of work up to that. So all my singles were still relatively heavy, but then all my back down work was done with belt squat. So I was belt squatting 3 times a week and doing singles 3 times a week. And that helped for a while, and I did adjust my reps down a little bit on deadlift. I also found that doing a lot of reps was painful. So we adjusted the reps down a little bit, adjusted the load down. And that was a way that we kind of approached it at first. Anything that was really, really painful or that caused like a significant, effect on me. Like, one thing is pain, because I'm okay with pain. I can kind of push through that. It's not that much of an issue, but when the pain prevents me from then doing what I need to do in the gym, producing force and being strong, that's when it becomes an issue that I feel like I have to really like do something about it, right? Because like if it's just pain, I can kind of just train through it and eventually pain tends to go away. But I literally was not able to perform at all to the ability that I felt that I should be able to perform on a normal basis. And so it was months. I mean, it was like November, December, January, February, March, like adjusting to allow me to train as close to pain-free as possible. And then obviously we had nationals, and so that's another thing I want to talk about. But we had nationals, 2024 nationals, Powerlifting America. I'm sorry, 2025 nationals. And so we only had a certain amount of time before that. And so like one of the things that we did with my training adjustment-wise is that we went from squatting 3 times a week to twice a week. And we assumed or thought that like maybe that would help because it's one less day a week that the bar's on my back. Come to find out later on, it didn't really help as much as we would have liked it to help. It was the decision we made at the time, and so for a few blocks I was squatting twice a week, and my squat took a hit because I just wasn't able. Like I'm always strong on the Saturday. I have a primary SBD day. I'm always strong on that day on all 3 lifts for the most part, as long as my training is I'm picking the right weights and all that, and recovery is good. I'm always pretty much the strongest on Saturdays. And so now I was doing my primary squat on a Thursday and just was never able to perform. I didn't have that extra 2 or 3% that I needed to just be at my, tip-top shape for how I was at the time. So a few blocks in doing that, we're just like, hey, like my Thursday squat just sucks. Like I'm just not as strong as, like I'm pretty strong, but I'm not like Saturday SBD day strong. And so that was a big issue for us. And so something that we did, which was, I think, kind of interesting. So a couple of blocks out, we said, hey, we only have like 2 blocks left. We can't just be belt squatting into the meet. I'm clearly not as strong that way, and most people are not going to be as strong that way. I need to put the bar on my back. I need to feel what that feels like. And so the pain is at a manageable level at this point, at a point where we feel like we can push through it. Not 100%, still, it's still hurting, it's still a problem, but we're going to be able to train relatively through it. And so we start adding some sets and reps back in. So we went from like 0 barbell squatting except for the 3 singles to, 1 block we added in maybe half my volume back on squat. The next block we add in all the volume back. And then the following block we're pushing the intensities a little bit more, getting closer, still not at 100%, but getting to that 90%-ish of what I would normally do, intensity-wise. And so like we're maybe 2 or 3 blocks out and we're like, hey, we gotta just go back to normal. So 2 blocks out, we add in all the volume. We're starting to push the intensity. We had a conversation, me and Marcellus, and like the conversation is something like, hey, we only have a certain amount of time to get back to normal. If I injure myself in this process, I'm okay with it because I've already been injured for months now. But if we get lucky and we can push through it, maybe I can go and have a good meet or a decent enough meet, right? I was not fully committed to the meet. I was okay with dropping out if I was injured, but I really didn't want to do that. So we train relatively normal, relatively the last couple blocks, except we're still squatting twice a week. And this is when I have the idea to add in the 3rd squat day 4 weeks out. Like we literally said, hey, let's add in the 3rd squat day because I'm clearly not as strong squatting twice a week. And so I'm like 4 weeks out. I have my primary squat, my heaviest squat of the prep or whatever. 4 weeks out or so. And because I typically build into the meet, so just giving some background there. But the heaviest squat within the last couple blocks, and it's on a Thursday, and I think I hit like 275 kilos, just 5 kilos over like a planned opener or something, and it was really tough. It was really difficult, much more difficult than we had wanted it to be. And so this is on a Thursday, and so I say, hey, I know it's kind of weird, it's kind of out of nowhere. On Saturday, when I'm going to actually be 4 weeks out from the meet, can I just squat? I haven't squatted on 3 times a week, mind you, in several months, but let me just try to just don't go in and just squat on Saturday and see how it feels. And I was able to hit, I believe it was 290 kilos, right? And I had failed at the block before, and it was like, it was a really obvious sign that like, I just need to squat 3 times a week. That's what works for me. Injury or not, I need to keep that third day in there. And so literally 4 weeks out, we added in the third squat day. We're kind of in uncharted territory at this point. This is weird for me. I've never had to make so many adjustments so close to a meet. I've never really gone to a meet like injured like this. I've had little things, but nothing that would affect me to that point. And so we have a really good week 4 weeks out. I think I hit like 820 kilos or something. It was like I had matched my previous gym best. So we were happy. We felt like, okay, everything goes well. We're at least going to be able to match my own PR, which is 840. And we felt like we were confident for that. Everything kind of turned around in that last week or so. And so we were like, okay, we have to go to nationals. We can't drop out at this point. Like, things are going pretty well. I wasn't fully injury free, but I was feeling okay enough to decide to go to compete. And so we essentially trained. Fast forward to the meet. Obviously not a good meet for me. One of my worst meets comparative to like what we thought I had it to what I actually was able to do on the day. Obviously I was not fully healed, and so my back just wasn't strong enough at that point. I think I just needed more time to train my back, because my legs had gotten really strong from all the belt squat, but my back and my core and wasn't really caught up fully, because I hadn't been doing a lot of barbell squatting. I hadn't really been pushing the barbell, the comp squat. So that obviously showed up on meet day. I mean, I was able to open with 270, which is the planned opener, and that moved really well, but there's a kind of a big drop off between the 270 and then the 290 that I took on my second attempt, and I just failed it twice, right? And it was a combination of my back was not strong enough, because I just was not, it was kind of detrained, I guess, in a sense, because I hadn't really been training my back in the way that I normally train it, and having the barbell on my back as often as I do, and just being injured and just wasn't 100%, right? It was both things. And it's really a very squat specific thing, because bench showed up fine. Honestly, and I'll just kind of say this, because like I do get affected on meet day when I miss lifts. So it kind of sucks, especially squat. So I missed 2 squats. I'd never missed 2 squats ever. I mean, I've only missed maybe 2 or 3 squats ever in my entire career before that, out of like 16 or 17 meets. So to miss 2 squats in one meet was, that was pretty heartbreaking in the moment. And so I really just wanted to go home. I was like, okay, I'm out of the race. I'm not going to be able to be like, I was shooting for top 3. Potentially I have a really, really good day. I can, break into the top 2. We'll see what happens, on the podium. I mean, everyone else has to execute as well, but maybe I can win if I'm having my best day. So that was the mentality we had going into it. And so to know that, like, okay, I'm just not really in the conversation for like anything at all at this point. I don't know if I can even break top 5 at this point. I just almost didn't really want to be there. I just said, like, I paid to come here. My family's here. I have people watching at home, my clients and everything. And so like, I have to set a good example and like, just kind of toughen up and just finish the day at least, right? I never really had to do that in that way, but I did what I did. Matched my best bench in a meet, so that was fine, and probably had a little bit more, so obviously my bench was on par with my best. And I hit a 5 kilo PR in deadlift, right? So 5 kilo all-time PR, meet PR, moved pretty well. So honestly, it was a very squat specific injury, because my bench was good, my deadlift was good, so it was really just a squat thing. It is what it is. You walk away with the deadlift PR, you walk away with another experience, you walk away with more practice, and that's kind of how I take it. It's like every meet that I do is a little bit more practice, a little bit more experience. I always try to take away something. I don't want to be corny or cheesy, but I do try to take away something from every competition, and that's why I try to keep myself relatively fresh and compete relatively often, at least a couple times a year, so that I can get that practice and keep getting better. And so that was nationals. That kind of sucked. Came back home with um, a lot of motivation to get back in the gym and to get healthy and to start to push again. And things have picked up a lot. One main thing that I've done is I'm sitting a little heavier, a couple of kilos heavier than normal, to see what it's like to actually be, a fully filled out 83, just a little bit heavier. So far, feeling pretty good, right? And so 3 blocks after the meet, so now I'll just talk about what my training has been like after nationals. I've had 3 full blocks, and I was able to PR my total in the gym, right? I hit an 850 kilo total, which is a 10 kilo PR from my best in the meet, best, in a meet ever, and then 30 kilos over the most that I've ever done in training. So for me, in my experience, I've been competing for I started 9 years ago, minus the 2 years of being hurt, but I historically, if things are good, I do a good amount better at the meet, right? I'm kind of a meet day performer. For whatever reason in training, I'm just never as strong as I am on meet day. So I'm okay with that. I would rather be strong on meet day than strong in the gym. And so my previous best in the gym was 820 kilos. And my previous best in a meet is 840. So we typically expect, if I'm feeling good and I'm strong and everything is good, my cut goes well and I recomp well and just everything is pretty dialed in, we can expect 20-ish kilos, maybe a little more on meet day. And so that's kind of what we were expecting. And now that I've done 850 in the gym, if you kind of look at all my lifts, which I may or may not post them in the video, but watching those lifts, I definitely have a little bit more on all of them, right? Especially squat, but bench and deadlift, I also have a little bit more. I can kind of grind on everything a little bit, so I probably have another 20 kilos or something in the tank based on what I hit in the gym. Meet day, the environment, the peak, having people watch me, the competition, all of that stuff brings the better, brings good out of me. Like, I tend to do really well in those situations, high pressure. So I'm pretty confident that I'm in the 870 range right now. So I'm very happy with the things I've gone, like essentially like coming after the meet. Like, all that we really have done is just gone back to normal training. I'm being somewhat careful with my back. We've made some adjustments to training, as in, like, instead of having, we have like a macro cycle where we'd have like a block of triples, a block of doubles, a block of singles on my primary day. And we essentially decided that, like, we're just going to keep singles year round. We're going to pace them so that, we've found that for me, it's hard for me to push the triples and doubles. The chance of injury is a lot higher when I have to push a second or a third rep in a really, really heavy set like that. And it's not really worth the risk for us. We've also found that maybe I just can't push quite as hard every single block with my top sets, so we're going to pace them a little bit better. And so I'll give you an idea of what the last macro cycle looked like, but off the top of my head, I believe I squatted 270 the first block, 280 the second block, and then 295 the third block, right? And 295 was a 2.5 kilo gym PR, moved extremely well, just 5 kilos under my best in a meet. Probably had another 10 or so, maybe more kilos in the tank. And that's okay. We take the win. On bench, I believe I hit something like, I want to say like 200, and then 205, and then 210, I believe. I may be off with that. But 210 was a 2.5 kilo gym PR, 5 kilo meet PR. Same thing. I tend to do a little bit better on meet day across the board. And then deadlift, I don't quite remember, but I think I ended the first block with like 315 or something. 310, 315. Second block was something like 325, and then 345. So you're kind of seeing, like, there's pretty big jumps that we're taking from one block to the next, but that just seems to work well for me. I probably just need a little bit more time to adapt and to pace myself a little bit better. And so that's one of the main things that we've changed. And for the most part, everything else is relatively the same. I'm just being kind of careful with my back just to make sure that I don't hurt it. But things are going really well. I'm optimistic for the future. And that's basically all that I wanted to talk about. I mean, I went over the injuries that I've had over the last year or so, nationals, my training, just kind of overall. And so those are really the biggest updates. I'm definitely going to do nationals next year, of course. That's the next big meet that I'm going to do. And then in between nationals and last nationals, I'm going to do some meet. I'm not quite sure which one, probably a local meet or something, just to kind of get a little bit more practice, a little more experience, to not get too rusty, and essentially just train through all the way until next nationals and just see what we can do there. Things have picked up a lot. We have a system that works. We have a formula that works. We know exactly how to get me stronger. The hard part is that as I'm getting stronger, I'm becoming more injury prone, and so we have to adjust things so that I don't get injured. But we have a pretty, we have a good system. We know it works, and we just need to kind of lock in and just, I need to manage my variables the best I can. And we're pretty confident that, we're going to bring together a pretty good package next year at nationals, right? As long as my back stays healthy, which it's been pretty good for a while now, for a few months. So I'm praying for that. I got my fingers crossed that it stays healthy like that. And that's basically all I want to talk about. Those are all the general updates. There's one more thing I do want to mention. So as some of you may know, I'm a powerlifting coach. If you guys are interested in working with me, if you ever wanted to work with me, join my team, Chris Perez Training, now is a good time to do it. I've never really capped my roster because I've never really felt like I'm full to the point where I can't take on another person or two. So we're in July now, early July. I'm probably going to have my roster open until around the end of September, beginning of October. In that time frame, I'm going to be really, really busy. And for a couple of months, I may not be able to take on clients. So from the end of September, beginning of October to the end of the year, coming into January, I may kind of cap my roster for those few months. If you're interested in working with me, you've got a few months to jump on board. So you can send me an email, chrispereztraining@gmail.com, or you can DM me on Instagram @ChrisPerezPL. Just say, hey, I'm interested in coaching. We can have a conversation, set up a call, whatever you want to do. Yeah, that's basically it. If you like the video, please like it, subscribe to the channel. If there's any ideas, if there's anything that you want me to talk about, leave a comment for me. Let me know, hey, I'm interested in this sort of topic, whether it's informational or more about me personally or about my training or whatever you were interested in me talking about. Let me know. So once again, thank you guys for watching. Until next time, stay locked and loaded.